If you're thinking of moving to North Dakota, this may be the video for you. Did you know that North Dakota is actually one of the most affordable states to live in here in the whole entire United States? Today I'll be breaking down the full cost of living for here in North Dakota, and specifically in Fargo, North Dakota, the biggest city in North Dakota. So you know how much it's truly going to cost, and you can see how affordable it actually is. The US Bureau of Statistics actually did a study. So what they did was they took someone's personal income needed to live, and then they would compare that to the median household value for a home in the states. Then based on that, they would take a percentage to see how affordable living in that state actually would be. So as you can see on this map, the darker the blue, the more affordable the state is. So you can see how affordable actually the whole entire Midwest is almost as a whole compared to the rest of the country. And we can see North Dakota specifically with 27.85%, which is one of the highest percentages on this graph along with Iowa. So as we can see how much affordable that is compared to Canada, where it's like 10.5%, Texas just under 20%, Montana 12%, Minnesota 21%, but we can see how affordable North Dakota is compared to all these other states, where it takes so much more personal income for you to be able to afford the median estimated value of a home. Now this is a graph with the 10 states with the lowest cost of living. North Dakota is ranked 6th on the list, along with other Midwest states as South Dakota, Nebraska, and Iowa. Those statistics and those graphs kind of cover everything in the state. So now let's break it down a little bit farther so you know how much it's actually going to cost you to live here in Fargo, North Dakota. And by the way, I'm Zachsykora. I'm a real estate agent here in Fargo, North Dakota and Moorhead, Minnesota. And if you are curious or interested to see what a move to Fargo-Moorhead or from Fargo-Moorhead is like, you can schedule a call with me through the link in the description below, or you can call or text the number on your screen now. We can see North Dakota's cost of living score is 88.6, which is less expensive than the average, which is 11% less lower than that US average, and obviously it is a North Dakota average. But this is a best place cost of living score, which takes into account everything. So this takes into account food, housing, house care, child care, health care, taxes, and everything, and it puts it all into a number, gives it an average, and then they did that for all the states, and obviously North Dakota was 11% lower. Now this is the cost of living per category, where I'll break down these a little bit farther. So housing in North Dakota, buying or renting a home, it doesn't matter, or apartment or whatever it may be, is 16% lower than the national average. This can make housing more affordable here in North Dakota and may make it easier or more obtainable for some people to get homes here compared to other states. So utilities monthly costs compared to the national average is 5% lower. North Dakota does have some harsh winters, but if you prepare for them and you keep your home in good condition, your heating bill, it will be higher than it was in the summer, but it still won't be too high, with it still being 5% lower than that national average. So food is 6% lower. North Dakota, obviously, it's a big state, and we don't even have over 1 million people here in the state. But with that, there's a lot of farmers, there's a lot of people that grow food, so it makes food be readily available, being close by, so that makes food cheaper in this area compared to other areas. But with that comes healthcare being 11% higher. So it may be that the hospitals here in the area in Fargo, in Bismarck, whatever, in the whole state, they have higher overhead. To pay those good doctors, to pay the good people, to get the equipment out here, it may cost more than if it was in like Minneapolis, if it was in big cities like Chicago or stuff like that. So that's what makes that number be higher. But if you trade off that higher healthcare for lower food costs, lower utilities, lower housing, lower goods, and then transportation, it kind of evens out, making it still very affordable compared to that national average like we saw earlier. So transportation, 0%. So with it being not as big as some of these big cities, we don't have a subway in Fargo specifically. We don't have, that big public transportation. We have a lot of people that drive or carpool to work, but we also do have buses. That really is just not what people use here in North Dakota. Then goods and services, 1% lower. Fargo is actually great and one of the best cities in the country for people to start businesses. There's a lot of good businesses and the great business people that were founded here in Fargo, North Dakota, giving a lot of opportunity for people to move to this area and to thrive. Now this is all those costs breaking down compared to the United States average. So the big one on here, we kind of touched on all these a little bit: grocery, healthcare, housing, utilities, transportation, then just miscellaneous, but the median house costs. So in North Dakota, it's around $240,700 for a median and average house, compared to the United States average, which is $338,000. Depending on where you live in North Dakota, if you live in a small town, obviously houses are going to be less expensive than if you lived in Fargo, Bismarck, Minot, the bigger cities. but that number evens out, and that average, you can see how much affordable it actually is here to live in North Dakota compared to the whole entire United States as a whole. So another thing that people love, and the greatest things about North Dakota, is the tax brackets. So North Dakota has really, really low income tax, not even getting above 3% for the highest bracket, as you can see on here, but being just above 1% for the lowest bracket, then 2%, 2.3%, 2.6%, up to 2.9%, but it's not even giving above 3. So this is awesome and a great opportunity for people, especially when you compare it to like the Minnesota tax brackets. Higher the tax brackets are in Minnesota compared to North Dakota. So even for the lowest tax bracket, it's 5.3% in Minnesota, compared to the highest tax bracket in North Dakota, where it's not even 3%. So that makes North Dakota very, very affordable, where people are not paying as much taxes on their income compared to other states. So that's one of the reasons why people love North Dakota, one of the reasons why it makes it so affordable. Now this is the average of how much you would need to live in North Dakota, on average on a monthly income basis. So a family, you would need about $3,800 a month. And that's actually 28% less expensive than the national average. And that's $46,000 a year. So that's for families to be able to live and thrive here in North Dakota. You need to average of $3,800 a month. Now we can see how much less that expensive that is from the country, being 28% more affordable. Then also for a single person, it would be $2,500 a month, which is almost 50% more affordable than the national average. And that's just about $30,000 a year for the single person here in North Dakota. So obviously, being a real estate agent, it'd be awesome if you were able to buy a house here in North Dakota, but obviously sometimes that may not be the best situation for you, but you need to interpret your goals. This is the average rent by bedroom size here in North Dakota compared to the US average. So we can see a studio apartment is just under $700 a month compared to the national average, which is over $1,000 a month. That's almost $300 difference just for a studio apartment. Then we can also see one bedroom apartment, the average in North Dakota is $750 compared to over $1,100 for the national average. Then for two bedrooms, $920 compared to $1,400 for the national average. Look how much affordable that is compared to a big jump of almost $300 to $400 for every single type of bedroom size. So if you combine this affordable housing, affordable rental costs with that low income tax, US Bureau of Statistics study, that's why North Dakota had such a high score, because it's that much more affordable from the rest of the country. Now I'm going to hop into a little bit of Fargo specifically. This is the cost of living score for Fargo, North Dakota, where we can see it's 90.6. So that's 9% lower than the US average, but it is 2.3% higher than the North Dakota average. So obviously, like I touched on a little bit before, if you live in a small town in the middle of North Dakota where there's not much value, obviously it's going to be less expensive than if you live in the middle of Fargo, North Dakota, in the middle of the biggest city in the state. Obviously all the amenities are right there, all these schools, all this different types of stuff like that. So this is what makes Fargo be a little bit more expensive than the state average, but it's still almost 10% lower than the national average, making it still a great and very affordable place to live here in North Dakota. So this is the same graph we looked at before, comparing all the different categories and what they compare to. So we can see compared to the state average, obviously these are a little bit higher or a little bit lower depending on what it is, but we can still see compared to the national average how much 16% lower, 5% lower, 3% lower, 1% lower than goods and services and healthcare are both higher being in this region. So that was just something we kind of looked at before, and we can see that reflects the same way with Fargo, but we just got to know that Fargo is a little bit more expensive than obviously if you're going to live in the middle of North Dakota, which there's nothing wrong with living in the middle of North Dakota where you maybe live in a town of less than 2,000, less than 1,000 people, but just know that you may not be as close to all those amenities than you would be here in Fargo, North Dakota. And if you want to see where would be the best town or the best place for you to live in North Dakota, you can schedule a call with me through the link in the description and we can talk it over and see what's best for your situation. So this is the median estimated value of a property here in Fargo, North Dakota. So we can see it's around $350,000. So this includes everything, single family, condos, townhomes, apartments, all that type of stuff. So the median estimated value is $350,000. So as you can see, this is still lower than that US average, which is this red line up here, but it is obviously higher than the North Dakota average. So this is the same graph we saw before, where it breaks down the average monthly cost needed to afford to live here in Fargo, North Dakota. So as we can see, for a family, it's about just under $4,500 a month, which is still 17% less expensive than the national average, and comes to a total of about $53,000, $54,000 a year live here in Fargo, North Dakota. Then as a single person, $2,600 a month, which is 45% less expensive than the national average, for about $31,000, $32,000 a year. So if people want to live somewhere where the cost of living is very low, there's a lot of opportunity. Even with it still being in North Dakota, there's still a lot of amenities here in Fargo-Moorhead specifically. Then Fargo and North Dakota may be the place for you. So this is just comparing the median rent price for Fargo, North Dakota compared to Moorhead, Minnesota. Now, if you didn't know this, Fargo, North Dakota and Moorhead, Minnesota, they're sister cities that are split by the Red River here on the North Dakota and Minnesota border. So Fargo, North Dakota has a population of around 150,000. Then Moorhead, Minnesota has a population of around 50,000. Now, Moorhead is a great and very affordable place to live. Comparing it to the rest of the cities in Minnesota, knowing the difference between Fargo and Moorhead in North Dakota and Minnesota is important when you're thinking of making a move here. So we can see the median rent price here in Fargo, North Dakota is around $1,056, and the median rent price in Moorhead is $1,020. And obviously, remember, as I talked about before, how the income tax difference is very important. So Fargo income tax is a lot lower than Minnesota's, but we can both see how affordable it is. It doesn't either way, whether Moorhead or Fargo. With this being 47% lower than the national average and 49% lower than the national average for Moorhead. I was just showing how affordable this place really is for people who are moving here. So this was a little video breakdown of the cost of living here in North Dakota